policy is what I should say. And it's these are the problems with the people that are writing policies, that they don't understand the layers of these things. So that concerns me. So then I spoke out about that. It went viral, and here I am, a domestic violence advocate in the gun community that I never expected there would be. So I have a nonprofit. It's called We the Female, and we go in and we teach defensive mindset and situational awareness, and focusing on trying to teach women how not to need to defend themselves to begin with a physical weapon, because they're using their mind to defend themselves from getting themselves in a situation to begin with. And, where I don't have a hard statistic, but I would say that it's very safe to say that probably 90 to 95% of any situation that you are going to need to defend yourself with a firearm or knife or martial art or whatever, you're probably going to be able to get out of if you're aware of your surroundings, and you reprogram your mind in a way to watch and not put yourself in the situation to begin with.
Yeah, I think.
So
let me jump in real quick. This is a good time to plug your Instagram, because you got a We the Female Instagram, which I really appreciate. And one of the things that popped out to me that I'd never considered, and I worked security for many years. I was
a bouncer at a bar.
Yes, but I also did other things like consults on how people could secure their places of business or their homes more effectively, cutting bushes away and more clear space, that kind of thing. But something I had never considered that you posted on your Instagram, which was where to stand when pumping gas. And I thought that was fascinating. In all my years of security and some law enforcement exposure, I've come from a family full of cops. I had never considered how risky it is to stand between your car and the pump when pumping gas. And if you wouldn't mind, we could birdwalk this just a little bit, because that popped out to me. It was really interesting.
Yeah, there's a few of them on there that people have said that. There's little things, one of my favorites in my classes too, because I'll walk you through that one. But is how many exits are in your Target? How many exits are in your Walmart that you visit every day?
Right.
They've got that information. I mean, you're much more likely to be hit by lightning twice in your lifetime than you are to actually, contrary to what the media wants you to believe, than to be shot in a mass shooting. But
Absolutely.
You're likely to get caught if there's an earthquake or a fire, or boyfriend behind the bakery counter loses it and comes out chasing everybody, in the night. So how do you get out of those situations? And so, but with the gas thing, so you want to, gas stations are, once you kind of start exploring this, which, by the way, you'll get a little paranoid initially. Take a breath, you'll be cool, you'll get over that. It's just a part of the evolution of changing how your mind works. But gas stations are a very common place for assaults, kidnappings, shootings. Not even necessarily directed at you.
Just robberies too, right? So, like if you're cornered, you got a gas line behind you, nothing in front of you but a car and you're flanked by a car and a pump. It's really easy for somebody to come up and be like, "Hey, give me your wallet." It's like, "Well, what are you going to do?" Like,
exactly. And then so most people, and I will say women, and yes, there is some gender bias with this, which is, the feminism piece, true feminism, which is a whole other rabbit hole that you and I could go down at some point, which might be kind of fun.
We could.
Because there is some psychological stuff with some of this newer philosophy thing, but women tend to be a little bit more hypersensitive to these types of things because we're programmed to be, because of what some of the gender inequalities that do exist with mindset, and because we're programmed to learn these things. And so basically, when you're pumping gas, take your keys out of your car, lock the car, because while you are pumping gas, somebody could, easily get into your car. They could open the car and just take your purse or anything else that's in there from the other side. If you're oblivious, if your head is down texting, which we see often even with people pumping gas, it's easy for them to do. A lot of people leave their car door open while they're pumping gas and looking at their phones, and they don't see that somebody, that's how people are, like Costco parking lot's great to watch how oblivious people are. But, so you want, right? So you laugh because it's true. And anybody that's listening to this, they'll think, oh crap, you're right. I mean, like, it's just, they're in the airport. It's
Yeah.
almost like the Matrix when you become enlightened to this kind of living, and you live this mindset of the lifestyle, and you start watching people. And it's not only do you see, you start watching for threats yourself, but you start to see, oh, I don't want to be near that person if some stuff goes down because that person is actually going to hinder my safety. You'll get really leveled up. So always keep your rear end or your backside to your car, and while you're pumping gas, and what we call in situational awareness is keep your head on a swivel. You always want to be turning that head 180 degrees. You want to be looking left. You want to be looking right at all times. For any potential threats, anything that could possibly happen. I have a story. I believe I saved it. I need to go back, of one of my volunteers actually, who probably very likely prevented an assault. Because she paid attention, and more so because, she paid attention and caught it, pulled her firearm out, and I don't know if the person saw that she actually was armed or not, but the fact that she was aware most likely prevented assault at a gas station because she used those techniques. So, and once you're done pumping, you put it back, you get in your car, lock your car, drive away immediately. Start putting your seatbelt on as you drive away. Don't sit and wait. Don't give yourself a reason to sit idle, because when you do, you make yourself a victim.
So let me play devil's advocate here on 2 points, because I know you like this kind of
You're
stuff.
You're wrong, Jake.
So,
oh boy, I'm kidding.
Yeah,
I'm kidding, people.
It's my male privilege. So, if you're advocating for people to have situational awareness, and they can think their way, I'm obviously overstating this. They can think their way out of things. Why is it so bad that they don't have to carry firearms? Why is that a problem?
So you want to be able? You mean why, if they're able to do that, why do they need a firearm?
Yeah,
Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah.
Because there will be situations. My friend at the gas station, for example, she prevented that. I have to go back and read. I actually have the information because she actually posted it on her social media. I believe, and that's why I mentioned that, because I believe he probably saw her get her firearm and actually holster it, because she had left it, had it in her car, and saw her holster it. But there will be incidences where you can recognize the threat, and you may not be able to get out of that threat. And so you need to be able to defend yourself if you're put in the unlikely event that happens. But there will be situations where you are not able to remove yourself, or it escalates so quickly that you recognize it too late, and you're going to need to be in a position to defend yourself. So we like to say that your situational awareness and your defensive mindset is your plan A, and your firearm or other means of self-defense, because, not everybody wants a firearm, and that's okay. And if for people that aren't comfortable with a firearm, I don't want them owning one. There's many other ways that you can defend yourself. I personally feel like that is one of the most effective and one of the most powerful equalizers for women, particularly because we can use them at a distance quickly.
So
if needed.
Yeah. The other devil's advocate point is that, okay, so you're a domestic violence survivor.
Correct.
You're home, happy, healthy now. You're training people how to be self-aware. They're progressing in life. I would say, what's the big deal about people seeing that in your background? If they check your background, they see that you've gone through this treatment and you've recovered. So what?
Well, right, and I get you. You mean in terms of why they would deny me for a firearm? Is that what you're asking?
No. Well, yeah, that. But I mean, because let's be honest, like if you're in a database somewhere, it's not just for firearms. It's going to go elsewhere. And so basically what you're doing is you're surrendering your confidential, medically necessitated access to records to whatever database it's stored in at the state. We'll just pretend Washington State has a really robust, electronic database that can see these things. And oh, by the way, we're playing this out because we're devil's advocating this thing. But as a clinician, if Nevada were to pass a law similar, I don't know that I would sign on to that, because I would stand firmly pat on the very contradictory law in my own Nevada revised statute code that says thou shalt not share stuff with other people unless authorized by the client. So
Right.
you'd have two contradictory laws. There would probably be a lawsuit that would have to be decided by the Nevada Supreme Court, but then ultimately it would go federal because we have HIPAA protections too. So,
Right.
but in this artificial circumstance where Washington State passes this law, and let's say that I, as the clinician, dump all my stuff into this database. I almost swore on my own podcast
And
there.
you lectured
I
me.
know. I almost swore on my own podcast. But I dump all your information in this database. What we're pretending is that nobody has access to that except for federal firearms license owners who can sell guns, right? But that's not really true. There's always going to be
No.
somebody else who sees it, be that the person who uploads it or the person who maintains the database or whatever. And because
Right.
they're not clinicians, they might not be subject to HIPAA protections because they don't have license to practice or whatever it is. So what? Yeah, you got some treatment. Yeah, whatever. Who cares that they see it? Healthy now, right? What's the big
Right.
deal?
So, but what is healthy, right? And so there's many components to this, and this will roll into and something I'd really like to address, which is a bigger concern, is the what we call the ERPOs or red flag laws, and we can kind of transition to that in a minute. With
ERPO, by the way,
right.
means extreme risk protection order. For those of you who aren't up on the lingo.
So the concern is that PTSD in particular, and this is going to play into what Walk the Talk America does and why I'm passionate about what they do. PTSD, I mean, depression, anxiety, all of them, but particularly PTSD is a button right now. It's a hot political button. It's a hot policy button. Has been very demonized, and for being the individuals that have it are unstable. And are able to, react in a negative way to impact themselves or others.
Not true,
very
by the way.
rapidly.
Not true, by the way. I want to make sure that we're identifying myths, right? So,
Correct. I mean, that's a blanketed thing because there's no criteria in that law that says untreated, treated. How long it's been. They're literally lumping everything into PTSD. And then back to your point, when they said, Margaret behind the counter, who gets this background check, right? Now we have to submit. So with a firearm purchase, you submit what's called to NICS, which is I'm going to choke. Which 4473 is, it goes to this NICS system. It's a federal FBI system. I cannot remember the acronym. I choked.
It's the instant criminal background check. Yeah, instant criminal background check.
So fun fact, y'all, you are in fact federal background checks do in fact already exist. So when these politicians are telling you they don't, they do. So now we also have to submit to our local city or county police department as well, where they check, and that's where that HIPAA violation happens, right? That's where all of that starts to happen. So, Margaret, behind the counter in the sheriff's office or at the State Department, down at Washington State in the office where they're pulling this information, she has no concept of what PTSD is other than it's PTSD and can deny a firearm because there is no criteria written in. There's no definitions. There's no understanding about successful treatment or somebody who is, having they're in having a moment, right? They're having an episode or they've been triggered
or and I'll float this out there to impugn my own kind, they were inaccurately diagnosed.
Right. I mean, that's a whole other level, of that. And so that goes back to that statement, which seems to be kind of sticking with people. And I mentioned it, that it's kind of a new concept to them. I said, it's not how it's written, it's how it's not written. And it's literally, this is always that makes people laugh. I'm like, so, did Margaret wake up on the wrong side of the bed? She's crabby, didn't get her coffee, and didn't change her hormone patch that day, and now she sees PTSD and screw you?
Or is
she's not looking at anything else.
Or
right?
is she,
totally.
I hate that she's Margaret. Like, feels like we're picking on Margaret. She could be Susie. It's always Susie and Timmy, right?
It's Karen.
Susie and
right?
Timmy.
It's Karen. It's always Karen, isn't it?
But she could, but this person behind the counter
right, exactly.
could be racist, sexist,
Right.
gender biased. They could lean themselves toward lots of things that have nothing at all to do with the allegedly objective evaluation of your medical history. And let's take it out of the realm of mental health for a second. I know that we're in a mental health podcast, and this is a hot topic for people listening probably because it's like, well, I don't want my depression treatment to prevent me from buying a firearm, especially, let's say, if you're a Reno police officer and you move up to Spokane and you do a lateral transfer, but in Reno, you got some treatment for your depression after your, say, critical incident where there was an officer-involved shooting. Now, all of a sudden, Spokane's going to deny you the ability to possess a firearm, which literally impacts the way you do your job. Now, are you going to go
Correct.
like work at Costco, even though you wanted to be a cop for the rest of your life? So
Right.
there's lots of far-reaching